Hi, I'm Bradley Metrock, CEO of Project Voice, and this is a new show that we're experimenting with called Company Update. We'll have a lot more to say about this later. I'm not going to burden this with you now, but I'm pleased to be joined by Shadi Baqleh. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Of Deepgram. Shadi, say hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Shadi is Chief Operations Officer at Deepgram, and Deepgram is a good friend of the show, good friend of Project Voice, good friend of the voice AI ecosystem in general, and just a great success story. The point of this conversation will be to sort of unpack where Deepgram is right now, coming out of a difficult pandemic period for everybody, and what's top of mind for the company as we move forward. But before we get to that, Shadi, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How did you end up with Deepgram in this role?
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. Shadi Baqleh, COO for Deepgram. I run our business and go-to-market functions. Um, I've been here for a couple years. I got introduced to Deepgram actually. My previous company, a company called Voicea, we were a voice bot. We built a solution that joined meetings, took notes, action items, decisions. Really pretty incredible tool. The two areas, and we did really well over the last couple of years. We grew from like 0 to 10,000 enterprise customers in a couple of years. But even with all that amazing success, and we ended up having a great outcome and sale to Cisco, there were a couple areas that were always a challenge, and that was around accuracy of speech to text and COGS, right? As a small startup growing fast, COGS were super important to us. So one of a former board member actually introduced me to Scott, who is the CEO of Deepgram. And when he and I got to chatting, I was telling him the Voicea story and all our amazing successes and some of our challenges. And, he said, "Oh, we've solved for those things." And I'm like, "Tell me more." Right. So he explained to me how Deepgram works, why it's architecturally different, end-to-end deep learning, true end-to-end deep learning, what that actually means in terms of accuracy, custom model building, what that means for our customers, and on the COG side, how we can actually drive costs down so that customers and partners can use the service everywhere on their audio, not just the select portion of it. So with that, right, yeah, it turned out to be very true. I took the leap, joined Deepgram. It's been a couple of years. We've had incredible success. I'm very humbled and very fortunate as we've grown and working with amazing people and amazing partners and customers.
Scott is a special guy. He's a very talented individual, and I think that's one of the things that companies that have distinguished themselves in this space have. They've got
Yes.
somebody unique, and it doesn't matter what the skill set is, but some sort of distinguished, uh, god tier, skill of some sort that they bring to the table, and you see it differently with different companies. But yeah, I'm a big fan of his, big fan of yours.
Thank
So
you.
I want to focus on let's talk about the last couple of years.
Mhm.
It's been a difficult period of time, and we've gone through some different cycles of this. We've gone through absolute chaos. We've gone through, well, we kind of think we're getting back to normal. Oh, wait, no. We've gone through some trimming of the fat now, it seems like, in tech. So we've gone through some different chapters in this book, with some chapters more to go, I'm sure. But talk to me about how Deepgram has persevered through the last couple of years, and maybe some of the things you've either
Sure.
done or learned.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Candidly and humbly, I don't think actually we've persevered. I think we've thrived post-pandemic. For lots of different reasons. As the kind of the world locked down, and we all have our own personal stories, professional stories. We went online more. We did things more in the digital world because we were forced to. Every interaction, had to either be replicated online in some form or fashion, or through audio, through video. Think of how many video calls we had, right? I mean, we were on Zoom calls and WebEx calls and BlueJeans calls for 8, 9 hours a day. Um, all of that is generating audio. right? And so for us, what we actually found is like coming out of the pandemic, we had huge traction, both in our install base, new customers, most importantly in our developer console. We're seeing lots of positive feedback as customers and partners came to Deepgram to build new solutions for voice or on top of voice, right? They found it, for example, like easy to try Deepgram, so super easy. Hey, we have a call center. We want to do a real-time use case. We want to spin this up very quickly. What do we do? Great, find Deepgram, get it going. We found a lot of startups who were building businesses during this time. We provided, a ton of free credits. That's going incredibly well for us as well. Seeing like lots of different projects being built, lots of different new solutions, a lot of interesting things around traditional enterprise. So for example, we saw like a lot of desire and need for large companies in retail, travel, education, finance, to analyze the audio spike during that time. And for lack of a better phrase, the cat's out of the bag, like that's not coming back, or going back, that's only going to increase. I can share with you a ton of the use cases that we've seen grow during the pandemic and now, but I'll stop there.
Well, that's a good segue into my next question for you, which is, yeah, so there's tons of growth in anything related to voice interaction, tons of growth in the underlying, conversational AI. In your estimation, as we move forward, we'll talk about, what's on Deepgram's roadmap in just a minute, but what's the biggest challenge? We're hearing all about the positives, and there are plenty of them, with companies, large and small, realizing that they need to be getting into this ball game and just the demand increasing and all that. But tell me what you see, either for Deepgram itself or for at a macro level. What's the biggest challenge ahead of conversational AI adoption in your mind?
Yeah, I do believe it's still how relevant the technology is in terms of like how useful it is. So hey, I have an experience with a conversational AI bot. Was it good? Was it bad? Was I like, meh, was it okay? So we still see a lot of the, hey, this is what we're doing, for this bot. How good is it? How accurate is it? How fast is it? What was the experience like for the end user? Those things, we're making huge strides. Our partners are building on top of our platform, but those are the areas, where we still see challenges. I think there's a big next frontier around the world beyond speech to text that we're actively working now, which is speech understanding. And this is making, the words more contextual and more real. So the best way to think about it is, hey, it's great that you have words, from voice, put into words, and you can do certain things with it, right? Maybe kick off some workflow, kick off some automation. But that next level around actually understanding is super important. So here's a real example. You call a call center, and you start in Spanish, right? But then 2 minutes in, you switch to English, right? The ability to understand that, right, and know that that's happening, super important. The ability to actually understand the audio. So think of a human being joining a call, any call, or listening to audio. That human could tell you things like who spoke, right? When did they speak, right? Who was the actual speaker? What was the sentiment? So if I said something like, well, that's great, sarcastically, versus, well, that's great, right, in an excited fashion, the speech to text will only capture those words, right? But the speech understanding will actually capture the actual sentiment, right, at the acoustic level. Topic detection. We know that there's so much audio now being generated in calls, meetings, podcasts, all these use cases. Well, it's great that you have it, but hey, I want to now search and just find me the meetings or the audio calls or the podcast moments of this topic, right? How do I search in that? Hey, I just want a summary. I've been 8 hours of meetings. right? Do I really want to listen to the audio, let alone read, 8 hours of transcripts? No, give me the summary. So I think the challenges still lie in making the words, right, the actual speech to text, more relevant and contextual in how we as humans consume audio, right? What do we really want? We want the important things. That's kind of the big next frontier that we're are actually doing now and actively working on roadmap too.
So I got two questions for you, and you can kind of wrap them up in one or take them however you want. So I want to ask you for sure about the competitive landscape
Mhm.
in the voice AI ecosystem. So there's no question that uh, as vast of a blue ocean as it is, there's more and more fish in the sea. You know what I mean? To mix metaphors, and so there's a lot of companies out there.
Mhm.
And Deepgram I think has done a good job distinguishing itself in a few different ways. But talk to me a little bit about that, and at the same time, go ahead and share maybe what the number one thing that's top of mind for Deepgram heading into the back half of 2022.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. So look, I think from a competitive perspective, there's two fronts. There's the company perspective that we always respect our competitors on all fronts, because competitors are, providing a service to the same, in some cases, the same customers and partners we're working with, and more. That said, I do think over the last couple of years, the types of competitors are really beginning to separate from, let's call it first tier, second tier, and third tier. And when we really, really look at, okay, who are the main competitors? Who are we really trying to, who do we really see in opportunities? There's there's a set of legacy providers that these companies have been providing service for the past 20 25 years. There's the newish modern tech companies. These are large tech companies. These are the Googles and the AWSs of the world, who in the last 5 to 7 years have done a good job providing services like this, although uh, they have a lot of limitations that we can chat about as well. And then we're seeing, in the last like maybe 2 3 years, a couple startups, Deepgram being one of them, who's really taking off, providing service in a completely different way on, several different axes of, better price performance. I'm talking orders of magnitude better on price, orders of magnitude better on accuracy, speed, scale. And as a result of those things, we are creating a new set of opportunities and use cases where I think that's kind of separated us even from the large tech providers.
Okay, so that's yeah, that's all good information. So we'll close by tell me something about yourself that nobody at Deepgram knows.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm an open book. Uh,
Sure.
let's see. Um, that is a great question. I don't know if
It
I'm
can
that
be
interesting.
trivial, it can be profound. Either
Um,
or in between.
let's see. What I don't know. I don't know what is some things that are interesting and profound.
But what do you
Uh,
like to do for fun?
travel. Um,
All right. So
yeah.
you've had a bad 2 years.
We had a bad 2 years. I've got a lovely wife and two kids that are 10 and 12. And now that they're old enough, we've been traveling with them. So Europe, Latin America, all over the US, planning a couple trips coming soon. Yeah, and they're really fun to travel with. And seeing the world through their eyes as we travel is probably one of the most gratifying experiences you can have.
Well, I tell you, no, that's great. And I tell you, one of the worst experiences you can have is attempting to go to an airport right now.
Yes,
uh, you gotta pay the price to get
yes.
where you're going these days. It's a separate discussion, but no, Shadi, this is great. So, Deepgram, like I said, good friend of Project Voice, good place to pilot this new concept of company update, which we will be doing quite a bit more of. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it.